為免影響表演者及觀眾，請關掉手提電話、其他響鬧及發光裝置。同時請勿在場內飲食或擅自攝影、錄音或錄影。多謝合作。
為免影響表演者及觀眾，請關掉手提電話、其他響鬧及發光裝置。同時請勿在場內飲食或擅自攝影、錄音或錄影。多謝合作。
Please switch off your mobile phones and any other sound and light-emitting devices before the performance. Eating, drinking, audio or video recording, and unauthorized photography are strictly prohibited in the auditorium. Thank you for your cooperation.
Ladies and gentlemen, the talk will soon begin. Please be seated. Good afternoon, Professor Muhammad Yunus, Professor Sir James Mirrlees, Vice-Chancellor Professor Joseph Song, honorable guests and fellow students. Welcome to the University Lecture on Civility held by iCare program. My name is Ayana, a Year 4 student majoring in Food and Nutritional Science, and I will be your MC today. We are very honored to have Professor Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Laureate in Peace and founder of Grameen Bank, to speak to us on small loans for big future. We are also very happy to have Professor Sir James Mirrlees, the Nobel Laureate in Economic Sciences and Master of Morningside College, as our moderator. Please join me for a big applause to welcome both. May I also take the chance to introduce the iCare program to you. The iCare program is a signature student program in the Chinese University of Hong Kong. First launched in 2011, it has the vision of facilitating students to initiate long-term interest and commitment to serve the local, regional, and international communities. It consists of a wide range of social and civic engagement programs, including the University Lecture on Civility, service projects, community projects, and social entrepreneurship projects. All these projects are designed as a form of experiential learning in the hope that sustainable personal growth is achieved and a global awareness is cultivated. Each year, the iCare program presents the University Lectures on Civility. It invites prominent speakers around the world to speak on issues about civility and humanity. This year, we have the great honor of having Professor Muhammad Yunus, founder of Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, also known as the banker to the poor, to be our distinguished speaker. May we now invite Professor Sir James Mirrlees to introduce our honorable speaker. Sir James, please.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is indeed a rare privilege. I have never previously met or had the opportunity to hear Professor Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus may have done more good in the world than the whole of the rest of us in the room put together. He has a most remarkable story. He was born and brought up in Bangladesh. He is Bangladeshi. His home is still Bangladesh. He went to university in Dhaka, and after that he did his PhD at Vanderbilt University in the States. Came back to Bangladesh, where he became a university lecturer, and then in due course professor of economics at Chittagong University. Chittagong is a city in the south of Bangladesh, which I happen to know quite well. And he remained there for many years. Not far away from Chittagong was a village. As an economist, he rightly was very concerned with what could be done about poverty, what could be done about the many aspects of poverty. And he found in this village that, as is indeed very common in the developing world, that people had to pay very large interest on their loans, but of course people did need loans from time to time. He will tell you much more about this. I'm not going to try to steal his thunder. That would be entirely inappropriate. But essentially, he moved in there and found a way of making loans to people at much lower interest rates that would enable them to do whatever they wanted to do, and they repaid the loans. Now, it was not coincidental that he was lending to women, and that was one of his remarkable innovations. Of course, from that time on, the Grameen Bank, which is the bank that he then established to continue his ideas, has grown and grown and is now a very significant part of the rural economy of Bangladesh. And banks, to do the same kind of thing, microfinance as we call it now, have continued to grow and expand all over the world. We'll be discussing some of that later. Entirely appropriately, but as usual, somewhat late, the Nobel Committee in Oslo gave a prize to Muhammad Yunus and the Grameen Bank jointly for the microfinance system and the work they had done. So it is a very great pleasure to have him here now and to talk to us this afternoon.
Thank you, Professor Mirrlees, for the introduction. Please be seated. May we now invite Professor Muhammad Yunus to share with us his stories and insights on small loans for a big future. Professor Yunus, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a great privilege for me to be here, and it's a wonderful occasion. And as Sir James has mentioned about the work that I do, and thank you, Sir James, for your warm introduction. And briefly, what I can say about my work, I accidentally got involved with something. It was not pre-planned, or I had no idea what I'll do. I was just a teacher in the university, just like many of you here, doing the routine work. But something pushed me out of the classroom. It's not because I wanted to, because the circumstances made it so. It's a desperation, really. Desperation pushed me out there. Bangladesh became an independent country separating from Pakistan in 1971. I was teaching back in the States at that time. As soon as we got the news that Bangladesh became an independent country finally, immediately I resigned from my job. I said, this is time to go home. So I came back. And in any kind of liberation war situation, when finally you win, lots of dreams come over you. That you can do things according to the images of your dreams. But in most cases, dreams turn into nightmares. What you thought you'd do exactly the opposite. It's a massive disaster, one after another. By 1974, we had a terrible famine. People dying of hunger everywhere. Here I am teaching elegant theories of economics, as we all do, mesmerized by the beauty of those theories, enthusiastically teaching the students all about it. When famine rages outside, and you teach those elegant theories, your confidence behind them starts declining, waning away. You ask yourself, are you teaching something about people, or you cooked up some stories to please yourself and passing on to your next generation? Does it have any relevance whatsoever to the people who live outside the classroom? And gradually you feel empty inside of you. You don't know what these things mean to people. Is there something else to be done? You feel useless. You have no use for anybody. Out of such terrible feeling inside of you, you want to get away from all that. One way of getting away from me was to forget about what I learned and be useful, find usefulness for me in the context of the situation that exists in Bangladesh at that time. I was lucky because this university that I was teaching was located right in the middle of villages. It's not an urban-based university. So I could just walk out of the boundary line of the campus and be in the traditional village. I thought that's what I'll do. I'll go out every day and be in the village, see if there's something I can do so that I can feel I'm useful to at least one human being, just one. So that was my ambition, and I started doing that. And every day I tried to find something to do, and I found lots of different things. I did little things for one, little thing to others. And gradually I felt some worth in me that I can do something. What I didn't expect, the desperation that I was talking about, what I didn't expect, something to see almost regularly in the village, loan sharking. You see face to face. It's not about reading, it's not about research report that you've seen. It's about real people. And in a very face-to-face way. Both persons, the guy who's lending the money, the person who's receiving the money, you know them both. They're just nice people. But the way it's done, you start feeling very ugly inside of you. How a human being can be so heartless, so cruel to each other. Tiny little money given as loan. In the name of the loan, you grab everything the other person has. It's not about interest rate. It's a very complicated system to grab everything. You see it every day. You see these people, and you hear about it, you meet these people, and you feel terrible. You can't do anything about it. Suddenly, a thought came to me, why don't I lend the money myself? The idea is if I lend the money, people don't have to go to the loan shark. Those people who will come to me, I'll give the money, and they don't need to go and get connected with the loan shark and save themselves from the exploitation it extended to them. I immediately started doing that. Out of my own money, I started lending money. I didn't realize how popular it became. Soon it became very popular. Everybody wants to borrow money from me. It's so easy. No papers, nothing. I just give money. And hoping, telling them, please return my money whenever you can. Nothing better than that. So everybody is lining up. So I was not getting scared of that. I was very, very happy about that. And people, as I go around the village, people look at me as I've done something miraculous. And I cannot believe that people have to look at me like that, as if I've done something out of this world. And the more I see that, the more enthusiastic I become. I dish out more of my money. As it is going, my money has a limit. So I see that I can sustain another couple of months by continuing this. In the meantime, I have to make sure that it continues even after my money runs out. That's when I thought, why don't I go to the bank which is located in the campus? I went to the bank, told the manager, why don't you lend the money to these people? I do it. Now you should take it over. He literally fell from the sky. He was trying to be very polite to me, explain that how bank cannot do such a thing. He didn't say stupid thing, but that's what he meant. It's impossible for a bank to do that. The more he explained, the more I became very agitated. It didn't make sense to me, every word he said. He said, poor people are not bankable. I asked him, what is bankable? He said, they are not creditworthy. I said, what is creditworthy? They are paying me back. I had no problem. They pay back the loan sharks. After all these terrible things they do, still they pay back. What is creditworthy now? He couldn't convince me, I couldn't convince him. So we took the whole issue. He recommended that I see the higher officials of the banking system. I got so agitated, I took the fight to higher levels. That's what the young teachers are good at. Jump at the next opportunity. So I took it to the highest level of the banking system in every bank. Everybody said the same thing. The more they said, the more I argued, the more nasty I became to the banking system. And I remained nasty ever since. I never got any pleasant after that. I accused them of everything. I said, it's a funny thing. You create something called bank, which is supposed to lend money to people. And you lend money to people who already have lots of money. And you don't lend money to people who don't have money. I said, simple logic will say you start with the people who don't have money. Only then you go up. They laugh at me. How innocent can a person get? I didn't take it personally. I kept on saying, since the door is not opening, my money is running out, so I gave them an offer. The offer is, why don't you accept me as a guarantor? If that's your problem, all this creditworthiness, bankable, all this stuff, I become the guarantor. You give me all the papers you want, I'll sign. And you give the money. If they don't pay back, I'll pay back. This time I spoke their language. So they couldn't quite throw me away through their window. But they were not sure that this is a good deal. But ultimately, after lots of these talk and talk back and exchange, not exchange actually, I'm throwing the harsh words at them. So they thought only way to stop me is to give me some money. Agree with this proposal. And they were absolutely sure it will never work. And then when I have to pay it, then I'll keep my mouth shut. I'll not say it anymore. So that is the beginning. I was very happy. Now that I can sign any number of papers, I can get money to people. And I took the responsibility of collecting the money and bringing it back. It worked beautifully, perfectly. Not a penny missed. I got very enthusiastic and kept on expanding, now that the bank gives money. But seeing that it's becoming bigger, bank became very reluctant. They were afraid it will fail. They're absolutely sure it will fail. It will fail at a larger amount, which is not good for them. So they started controlling me, not respecting my signatures anymore, making all kinds of excuses. I got furious. I said, forget about these banks. They will never do it for poor people. Why don't they create a bank just for the poor people? So another turn on the story. This took a long time to persuade the central bank, persuade the finance ministry to allow me to set up a bank for the poor people. Whole story started in 1976. In 83, we became a formal bank, called it Grameen Bank, or a village bank. We became very happy. Finally, it works. It can expand. We can expand wherever we want. And we kept on expanding and expanding and expanding. By now, it's a nationwide bank. Bangladesh has more than 80,000 villages. We work in every single village. We have 8.5 million borrowers in the bank right now. 97% of them are women. This again came because of the controversy, because of all the shouting I was doing in the beginning. I was saying not only you are wrong by not lending money to poor people, you're absolutely wrong, you're not lending money to women as a whole, not just poor women. Even a rich woman doesn't get any loan from me. They were shocked. They said I was making up. I said, no, I'm not making up. This is your statistics, this is your report. Not even 1% of all your borrowers happen to be women. Something is absolutely rotten in your system. They tried to argue. I gave counter evidence. They were saying, women don't come to us. I said, look, this is what happens when they come to you. You ask them to bring their husband. You never asked a man, when he asked for a loan, to bring his wife along. But you do it for women. So women don't feel very encouraged, all the rules that you have. So when I began, I wanted to make sure half the borrowers in my system are women. When I say my system, it's me and my students, that's all. That's all we're doing. Everything worked, me and my students together. And they grew up with the bank. They became the top brass of the bank. They are now retiring from the bank, all the students that work with me. So this is the story. People ask me, how did you design this bank piece by piece so that it really works? I said, I don't know. But I didn't work hard to design that. The way you're saying, something must be behind it. It's not like that. Only thing probably I can say, every time I needed a rule or a principle or a kind of guideline to run my program, I look at the conventional banks, how they do it on that particular subject, and I learn it, how they do it. Once I learn it, I just do the opposite. And it works beautifully for me. And every piece of Grameen Bank you go, you'll see is absolutely the opposite of conventional banks. They go to the rich, I go to the poor. They go to men, I go to women. They work in the city center. I go to villages. Even after 40 years of our work, not a single branch still exists in Bangladesh of Grameen Bank, which is located in any urban area, any city, any town, any township. We just work in the village, that's all. Conventional banks don't work in the village. We don't work in the towns. The opposite. Conventional banks require their customers come to their office to do the business. We dismissed it right from day one. We took the policy, people should not come to the bank, bank should go to people. If we are working with the poor women, illiterate women, asking them to come to your office is absolutely closing the door for them. They will never come. Even a man will not come. So we said, why try that? Why don't we go there? So imagine 8.5 million borrowers in 80,000 villages. You meet them within the week. Everything is done in a weekly cycle for us, 5 days. Within 5 days, we meet all the 8.5 million borrowers at their doorstep and do our business. They don't have to take a step. So that's what the Grameen Bank is all about. Conventional banks are owned by rich people. Grameen Bank is owned by the borrowers, the rich women, poor women. So usually banks are owned by rich men, not women. That's also reverse. This is owned by poor women. And they own the bank, they sit in the board, they make the decisions. Bank makes profit, profit goes back to them as a shareholders. All of them are shareholders. Bank require collateral. That's the wall they create between the poor and the rich. I said, the collateral were designed for the purpose of keeping poor people out of the bank. Otherwise, it has no purpose. Because when 2008, all the banks are collapsing, you didn't see this collateral is being used to get your money back. Nothing happened. So I said, it's a useless thing anyway, except for the purpose of keeping the poor people out. So we demolished it. We said there is no collateral needed. So it's basically a bank based on trust, nothing else. We don't have any papers, legal papers between the lender and the borrower. Since we don't have the papers, legal papers, we don't need any lawyers. We're the only lawyer-free bank in the whole world. An amazing thing, it works. It pays back every penny. We lend out over $1.5 billion a year. All the money comes back. No papers, nothing. You thought Bangladesh is a crazy country to happen like that. Now it is spread in many, many countries around the world, including in the United States. We are challenged to do it in the United States because they are saying it cannot work. I said, let me try. So they challenged me to try it in United States. So we set up our first branch in New York City, Queens, Jackson Heights. Many of you are probably familiar. So all the Asian immigrants and all the other Caribbeans and all those people live there. An amazing thing. I thought loan sharks are only in Bangladesh. New York City is filled with loan sharks. They have different names. They call them mafia. They call them payday lenders. Just a name. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, maybe trillion-dollar business all over the United States. It flourishes. But the conventional banks don't come anywhere near them. Payday lenders, interest rate, 500%, 1,000%, 2,000%, you name it. Desperate people, out of desperation, go there. And they advertise in the newspaper, no question asked. Loans are sanctioned within minutes. Catch you. And capture you, ruin you. It flourishes right in front of us. We have nothing to do with it. So we go there in New York City to start a Grameen program. It worked beautifully. Then every other borough in New York said, we need our Grameen Bank in our neighborhood. So we start opening branch after branch. Now we have 8 branches, 1 each in every borough. Then other cities in other cities in the USA say, we need it more than New York. Our poor people are worse than New York poor people. Please help us. Please bring your bank here. We'll give all the money you need. So we open our branch in Omaha, Nebraska, Charlotte, North Carolina, Indianapolis, Houston, Jackson, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston. Unheard of situations exist in those cities who depend on everybody's mercy. So this is the spread. In USA, to complete the USA story, nearly about 60,000 borrowers right now in the last 6 years that we started. 100% women, not a single man in the whole program. Initial startup loan is less than $1,500. You'll be amazed how desperate people are to get that $1,200, $1,500 to start something, to make a living out of that. Repayment rate, near 100%. No collateral, nothing. Even in the USA. So it's not Bangladesh. Everywhere. So that's the story of microcredit, Grameen Bank and all that. But in the whole thing, I gave you a little bit elaboration because that led me to raise question after question. And that's what I'm doing all the time. I see something, I raise a question. And I try to solve it in my way without waiting for others to give me the answer. I prepare my own answer and I do that. Like I was introduced, I'm introduced like that many times, that I'm the banker to the poor. I like that, because if they call me banker, I will feel a little uneasy. So banker to the poor is a good title. Then it hit me. I started asking, if another banker is on the same stage, coming from the conventional banking side, how would you introduce him or her? You say, he's a great banker, very successful banker, he's a very accomplished banker, all those things. I said, that would be wrong. If you call me banker to the poor, you should introduce him as a banker to the rich. I don't lend money to the rich, I lend money to poor, you call me banker to the poor. He doesn't lend money to the poor, he lends money to the rich, so you call him banker to the rich. Then it will be clear. When you call him a banker, it assumes that he does business with everybody. He doesn't. You hide it by using the designation. I said, that's where we're wrong. If Grameen Bank is subtitled as a bank for the poor, every bank in the world should be subtitled bank for the rich. Very natural. Because otherwise you will be hiding facts. And if you hide facts, we are not get concerned about the other part. If you had written, it's a bank for the rich, we'll say, what happened to the bank for the poor? Why don't the government do something about it? Today, nobody says that because they hide, and we got used to it. Most of the problems created in the world, which make this system unworkable, financial system is behind it. One thing that we come across, and we repeat it many times, you do it all, I'm sure you do it too, income disparity, concentration of wealth in few hands. Only few, just a few handful, less than 100 people, owning more than half the wealth of the world. How crazy can the system get? Not even 1%, just less than 100 people. Should we resign to that? Okay, let them have it. So who cares if they have lots of money, as long as I can make my living? That's not the way it works. Disparity widens and widens and widens. It will get worse, because the number of people on this planet is increasing and increasing and increasing. So all the wealth will be concentrated absolutely in few hands. Most of the people will be at the bottom. Income disparity will get wider and wider. That's an unsustainable system. It cannot function. And population thing is also something to be recognized. It took us 3 million years on this planet to make the first million people on this planet. After 3 million years. From 1 million to reach 1 billion, it took us about 20,000 years. From 1 million to 1 billion. And we reached our billion only the other day. 1824. First billion on this planet, 1824. Second billion, 1929. See how long it takes? And then we got 7 billion in 2011. Imagine 1929 to 2011, less than 100 years, we added all those people. We are adding 1 new billion each 12 years. So if you put all those people together, all the wealth is concentrated in few hands, what happens to the rest of the people? It's not going to be an easy place, that's for sure. Why? Why does it happen? Are these people greedy people? They get everything? No, they're not greedy people. They're decent people like all of us. Nice people. Simply the system is designed to make it happen. Wealth is like a magnet. If you are in the bottom side, you don't have that magnet. You don't catch anything. If you have a medium-sized magnet, suddenly you started collecting many more. If you have the big-sized magnet, everything rushes to you. You don't have to do anything. System works for you. And one of the explanation I gave about the microcredit, tiny loan, I said the poor people are poor because the system doesn't work for them. You need $1 to catch $1. You can't catch $1 with empty hands. Nobody gives them the first $1 so that they can catch the next $1. That's what we go wrong. So the system that we design is absolutely working for a different purpose. Why does it happen? Because, again, economic theory that we built, I see in my own way, I said that's built in a completely wrong interpretation of a human being. Theoretician assumed human being as a selfish being. They call it self-interest. Selfish doesn't sound good, so they call it selfish, self-interest. All they do for self-interest, make money. So we became a money-centric world, because that's what the theoretician told us. One thing that I cannot accept, that human being to be assumed as a one-dimensional being, selfish being. I said, whatever we can say, definitely human beings are not money-making robots, the way system measures into. We have misinterpreted and we have miscreated images in the design of the theories that we made. So we became such robots. To me, human being is a multi-dimensional being, not a single-dimensional being. Theory has removed all other dimensions, kept only one dimension. If you say, what about other dimension? What about the selflessness in human beings? Oh, okay, if you want to be selfless, be philanthropist, give away your money. Who stops you? I said, no, I don't want to be philanthropist. I want to be in the business world, do business, use my selflessness in the business. No, you can't do that. You have to be selfish. I said, no, I don't want to be selfish. Then I go back. I see this problem of the poverty and related other problem, healthcare problem, sanitation problem, malnutrition problem, housing problem, you name it, everything. Every time I look at the problem of the poor in Bangladesh, that's where I work, I create a business to solve it. It became a habit with me. So whatever problem I see, I immediately create a business to solve it. But everybody says, you make so many businesses. You must be making lots of money out of the poor people. I said, no, I make business not to make money. I make business to solve problems. So what kind of business is that? You're supposed to make money. I said, is there any law in Bangladesh? If I don't want to make money, they will put me in jail? I do it because I enjoy it. I want to do things which helps people. And I have no interest in making money. I don't own a single share of any company anywhere in the world. I enjoy it. It doesn't make any difference to me. So then it hit me. Why do they see that I'm doing something crazy? Then I go back to that interpretation of human being in the theory, that you have to be selfish. What I was doing, I was using the selflessness. In a selfish business, everything is for me, nothing for others. I reversed it. I created selfless business. In selfless business, everything is for others, nothing for me. What's wrong with that? They said, oh, you took away the whole idea of profit. Profit is the driving force behind any all economic activity. If you remove that profit, personal profit, whole business world, economic world will collapse. I said, well, maybe not. I agree that profit is a very powerful incentive, but I do not agree that's the only incentive. There are many other incentives in the world. You simply didn't bring it on the table. And I try to explain it by saying making money is a happiness. That's why people run after money. But I can see the other happiness also. Making money is a happiness. Making other people happy is a super happiness. But you're not familiar with that, so you don't know about that. I said, only thing I'm doing, I'm putting on the menu that you try it. If you like it, you'll do it. And I did it, I like it. And I created those things, not out of somebody pushing me, because out of the excitement it generates in me. Not only excites me, it excites many people in the world. Particularly young people, love that. They want to see things happening. And this is one way they can use their creative power and make a difference in the world. Because I don't have to wait for the government to solve problems. And governments will never solve problems anyway. No, I'm not saying that as a kind of a hostility to them. Simply they don't have the ability to do that. They can only do things through bureaucracy. They have no other way. But we have the creative power. Each individual has the creative power, and a drive, and a mission, and an emotion to make things happen. And that's the driving force for me. If I can do that, I can go ahead and make it happen. So, selflessness. I said if we reinterpret human being as a combination of selfish and selflessness, the whole world changes. Suddenly there are two kinds of businesses, two kinds of everything. In the business schools, now we have only one kind of business to learn, how to make money for your company. That's the only thing they teach you. I said, then you have to have another department in the business school, giving social MBA, because I'm calling the social business. So somebody has to teach them how to run a social business, how to design a social business, how to evaluate a social business, how to make it very, very effective in getting the impact. Then they will come out and create those things. If you ask a profit-making student of business school to run a social business, he will be totally lost. He doesn't know. Why are you doing that? I'm supposed to be making money. You're not making money, so what do I do? So we need a different kind of thing. Everything will be separate. In economics courses, you'll be taught there are two kinds of businesses in the world. One is called personal profit-making business, another is problem-solving businesses, social business. why don't you become philanthropist to do all these things? I said, no, you see, in philanthropy, money goes out, does a wonderful work, but it doesn't come back. You have only one-time use of your money. So what I'm doing, I take the same objective of philanthropy, but put a business engine behind it. And then social business money goes out, business way, does the work and come back. And it becomes very powerful because you can use the same money over and over again, infinitely. It never stops. So it's unlimited life. Charity money has one life. Social business money has unlimited life. It becomes an organism, it grows, it solves your problem. What are the things I have done in the beginning? Small things, simple things. Like we had night blindness, very rampant in all the families. Children can't see at night. They become night blind. What is happening? Absence of vitamin A, deficiency vitamin A. So doctors advise us that we tell the children and the families to take vitamin A. How do you take vitamin A? Tablets? No. Vegetables? Yes, vegetable is a good idea. So we started preaching that vegetable idea, to eat vegetable for the children. They forget. They make excuses why they didn't prepare vegetable for the children. They say, we don't have the seed, how can you grow it? So we started selling seeds. We make 1 penny packet for each seed. Started selling as a business. As Grameen Bank grew, our seed business grew. At one point, we became the largest vegetable seed seller in the country. By that time, night blindness disappeared in the country. We didn't do this business to make money. We didn't want to give them as charity. Then we can give you only few packets in few villages. We wanted to do it, and we didn't want to have a burden on the poor people who borrow from, because we are using their money. So we said, no, we protect their money. We run it as a separate business. Business not to make money out of the poor people by selling vegetable seeds. To make sure they have it, enjoy it, cook it, eat it, feed it, that's it. That's our first, we didn't have a name for it. We did a lot of other things. One thing we did about 20 years back, this is jumping many, many years. Bangladesh doesn't have electricity. Villages are dark after sunset. Kerosene lamps comes up. 70% of the people of Bangladesh don't have electricity. What a shame, in this day and age, people don't have electricity and depend on kerosene lamps, which is a health hazard, is a fire hazard, all kinds of hazards. So I said, maybe we should do something different. Maybe we should bring solar energy. 20 years back in Bangladesh, solar energy was not quite known. They said, oh, no, this doesn't fit into Bangladesh situation. You're too far away, probably. You're influenced by your US universities or European experiences, not Bangladesh. I said, no, I'll try. So we created a company, named it Grameen Energy. Idea is to sell solar home system. We made up little solar home systems, started selling. People are very reluctant to pay for it. They said it's never worked. It's simply a waste of money. Selling 2 or 3 solar home systems over a whole month was a challenge. But we didn't give up. We thought it takes time for people to understand. Then we sold 20 solar home systems per month, 50 solar home systems per month. We were very happy. 18 years later, 2 years from now, we came to a point where we are selling 1,000 solar home systems per day. And by that time, we had 1.6 million homes with solar home system. And in the process, people started looking at us, you are the largest off-grid solar system in the world. We didn't know that. We were just simply merrily selling it, organizing it and doing it in a business way. Not as a business to make money, but to solve a problem. Now we have many such things. I don't want to make a big list, but one interesting thing, some big businesses became interested in our work. I had no idea that they will be interested. First one was Danone, a French company, food milk product company. They approached us that we are very impressed by your idea of social business. We would like to get involved with social business. Can we work with you? I said, well, it depends what you mean by social business. We have an idea of social business, whether you have the same idea. So I don't know, we read your book, we understood everything. So gradually we started talking. I saw that they were serious. Over a period of time, we got to know each other well, so we sat down and discussed in details and created a company, a joint venture company, Grameen Danone Food Company in Bangladesh. To address what? Address malnutrition among the children. Out of that company, we created a special kind of yogurt, which is different from all other yogurt they produce. They put all the micronutrients which is missing in the children into that yogurt, vitamin, iron, zinc, iodine, and make it very cheap, because in social business, you can make it very cheap because you get all the frills out. If you're a money-making business, you have lots of frills. You have little substance, you make a big package to make it worthwhile to pay the money that you want to pay. And you're paying many of the time you pay the packaging more than the content. But you do that all the time. So in social business, you don't do that. You just do the essence, whatever you have. So we cut down cost, started selling. Bangladesh is a country of child malnutrition. 48% of the children are malnourished. So we address this. Children eat it, regain their health. That's it. Many studies are being done to see whether health gain is significant. They're overcoming malnutrition and so on. So that's a social business. Many other companies became interested in us to do joint venture. We have joint ventures with Uniqlo of Japan, joint venture with BASF of Germany, joint ventures with Intel Corporation USA, joint ventures with McCain of Canada, and so on, with a whole list of them. Each one is significant. Some of them are technology related. I'm very excited about the possibility of technology. And the power of technology can immediately change everything. But I regret, again, I said, the technology is driven by two forces. One force is the money makers who want to make money by inventing technology, creating businesses out of technology. So the money motive is driving the technology. Another is the war makers. They want technology to win the wars. So these are the two driving forces. There is no social force driving technology. If we had used technology, power of technology, to solve the problem of healthcare would be almost costless. You need social business to do that. So we need a social force which take technology, put in the direction which will change the world. Other technology will say, we are changing the world too. Of course you are changing the world. No argument about it. But you created the company to make money out of it. So you are limited in that part. But if you had designed technology to solve a particular problem, for example, we can do all the diagnostics almost costlessly by mobile phone. Today, many of the universities, many of the research institutions, dedicated young people are coming up with that, apps. You can take your echocardiogram with a mobile phone. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You can record it anytime you want and pass it on to your doctor to see how many reports you want. You can do your eye scanning. You can do your blood test. Costless. It's a very beginning stage. Maybe it's not as perfect as the one you do in a very expensive hospital. But this is what you need. And billions of people are waiting for healthcare. It doesn't exist. Healthcare doesn't exist. So technology can drive this whole world. I'll mention one problem that I face, and I'll conclude that. As we do, going back to Grameen Bank again, these women that we have in Grameen Bank, they're illiterate, cannot read, cannot write. So we wanted to make sure their children do not repeat this. This will be the last generation. Their parents will be the last generation of illiteracy. New generation will be literate, educated, and all. So we encourage, make sure every child goes to school. We succeeded, 100% children going to school. And many wanted to go to colleges after they'd gone through this high school. We said, don't stop, because they were stopping because it needs money. We don't stop, we'll give you the loan, education loan from Grameen Bank, very cheap, don't have to worry. So we do that. Many have done graduation, many have done PhDs, many are doing professional doctors, engineers, and so on. But new problem emerged. They have no jobs. They keep complaining, where is the job? What is the use of going to school? You have no job anywhere. In the beginning, I couldn't respond to that. Then I made up my mind. The moment they will tell me, what happened to our job? Why didn't you give us a job? And I attacked them. I said, who said you have to have a job? Did your teacher tell you to have a job? Did your textbook tell you to have a job? Of course, they don't have an answer for that. I said, forget about jobs. Job is an old-fashioned idea. It used to be in previous centuries. It's an obsolete idea. Nobody in this world would look for jobs anymore. You are young people. Why should you look for jobs? You change your mind. It's all a question of what you think. You change your mind. You repeat to yourself, I'm not a job seeker, I'm a job creator. And behave like a job creator. Think like a job creator. And suddenly you'll feel you're strong. If you're a job seeker, you're small. You're at the mercy of everybody. You look at everybody as someone who can extend kindness to you. You don't need kindness. You need your own strength. Well, that doesn't make them happy either, because we don't know how to make a job. Create a job. I don't have a job and he wants me to be creator of a job. I said, don't worry. We create a social business fund. We tell them, come with business ideas. Any idea you have. If you have a business idea and we see it's a business idea, we invest in your business. We become your partner, equity partner. We work together, make you successful, you become successful, and you return the money that we give you. We are social business people. We don't want to make money out of you. All we want to get our money back. That's all we need. You give us money back, then we put it to another kids, another one. Boys, girls, doesn't matter. Urban, rural, doesn't matter. You are entrepreneurs. Make it an entrepreneur, do it. Now hundreds and hundreds of these young people come, we continue. And I keep raising that unemployment is literally an obsolete idea. Again, a flaw in the thinking process of the design of the economy that was made. They assumed all human beings have to work for somebody else. What a shame. Human being has such a creative power. It's an unlimited creative power. You're asking that creative human being to work for somebody else? It came from the days of civilization when we started with the slavery. It's a question of slavery passed on, as if that's the fate of a human being. Fate of a human being is definitely not working for somebody else. We are born as an entrepreneur. But theory has made us forget that. They pushed us, this entrepreneurship, deep inside of us so that we will never discover it. All we do, we come out of the colleges, universities, with a job application, or several job applications. One job application doesn't do a job. So you need several job applications. It would have been, you finish your school with business plans. That's what you should be. And the institutions will be waiting by to support you, to invest in you, so that you go on your way. And that's exactly what we are doing in Bangladesh. And it's a shame, in Europe you go, country after country has massive youth unemployment. Spain has 48% youth unemployment. Italy has 40% youth unemployment. If you go south of Italy, 70% of youth unemployment. Portugal, Greece, you name it. So what kind of economy is that? Half the people in the world are unemployed. Is this what we call economy? Is this what we call economics? Make people forget who they are? And it's a very simple thing. Young people complaining to us from Grameen Bank families when they ask for a job. Oh, they didn't teach us how to run a business. I said, I understand they didn't teach you, so, but can you do it? How do I do it? We have no idea. I said, shame on you. Your mother is a Grameen Bank borrower. 25 years back, 30 years back, she joined Grameen Bank. When first time she was joining, she was shaking like this, whether to take this money or stay away from it. It's a big responsibility. How much money she was looking for? $30. When she first got this $30 loan, she was trembling. Tears were rolling down her eyes. She could not believe anybody could give her such an enormous amount of money. And she took this money and worked hard to make sure every penny is paid back with interest. And she ran a business. And since then, she is running business and expanding business, taking loan after loan, 30 years of that history. And she sent you to schools, you went to universities, you did your degree, and you are telling me you are not as good as your illiterate mother. What kind of education is that? To make you forget who you are. Shame on that education. If all these 8.5 million women can become entrepreneurs, that's what they are. How can their children become entrepreneurs? Because they went to school. So that's a reversal of what we are, what we see. So I keep saying that it's an artificial concept. Unemployment is artificially created thing. It's not natural to human being. Again, it's drilled into our head that we have to take up a job. We tell our children, work hard so that you can get to best school so that you can get a best job, as if that is the ultimate of life. We forgot what is the ultimate of our life. That's not part of our life. We don't even talk about it. Job is ultimate. So that's where we go wrong. And I put 3 zeros in front of me to make my life simple and concentrate on that. Zero number 1, zero poverty in the world. This I have been doing again and again, explaining again and again. It's possible, it's feasible, it happened. World has reached many countries, including Bangladesh. Reducing poverty by half by 2015. Bangladesh has done it by 2013. Now ready to achieve it, zero poverty by 2030. It's a very natural process. Used to 1% per 10 years, per year over a 10-year period. Then it became 1.5% per year for first 5 years. And then it became 2% per year poverty reduction. Today is a 3% reduction of poverty in Bangladesh per year. So if you continue that, you'll hit zero very soon. It's a very natural thing. Why are we saying poverty is something is packed with the life itself? It's not. It's an artificial thing anyway. It's imposed on human being by the system that we created for the world. So we undo that system, and poverty will be gone, finish, disappear. And then I say we create poverty museums, because nobody will see poor people in the world. They'll be curious. What is poverty? Why the people are poor? So we'll take those kids to go to the poverty museum to see what poverty used to be like. And they will feel ashamed of their parents and their grandparents and great-grandparents, how they tolerated it and walked away as if nothing happened. And they will promise they will not let it happen again. Then the second zero, zero unemployment. Unemployment is artificial. We can redesign the whole world as with entrepreneurship. And there's one sentence keeps coming to me again and again. They say 60 million young people are joining job market every year. They want me to get threatened by that, get scared by that. 60 million young people joining job market every year. I said, no, I'm not threatened. You formulate it in a threatening way to the people who are unaware of it. I see it completely different way. I reformulate that sentence by saying 60 million young entrepreneurs joining the business world every year, changing the whole world in the process. Just make them happen. Suddenly the world becomes a completely different place. If you tell me it cannot be done, I'll challenge you. Because every case of microcredit is a case of entrepreneurship. If a rural woman can show her entrepreneurship, there's absolutely no reason why an educated young person cannot show that. If education is a process of pushing down their entrepreneurship, throw away that education. We don't need that education. Education is to unleash their energy, unleash their creative power, not to go and work for somebody at the bottom of the ladder, do tiny little things in the peak of your creative activity, creative power. You are assigned a tiny little activity supervised by a tiny little boss over you. That's your life. What a shame. All the creative power is gone. By the time you're coming out of that process, you are finished as a human being. So we want to retain our creative power. Third zero, zero net carbon emission. Unsustainability of this planet is absolutely documented with this zero, all these zero, particularly this one, because we are doomed if we do not address that issue. Zero net carbon emission. And once we put these 3 zeros together, we are at a stage when we achieve it. What we are doing, we are transforming the present civilization, which is based on selfishness, into a new civilization which is based on human qualities. That's the civilization we should be aiming at, and we should do it fast, very quick. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yunus, for the thought-provoking sharing.
Papers keep coming.
May we now welcome Professor James Mirrlees to join us on stage again.
Okay, I'll do that. Oh, looks good.
Professor Yunus and Professor Mirrlees are both scholars in economics and are both Nobel laureates. Professor Yunus won the Nobel Peace Prize by founding Grameen Bank and pioneering the concepts on microcredit and microfinance in 2006. Professor Mirrlees was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics for his contributions to the economic theory of incentives under asymmetric information in 1996. How would they define and tackle poverty issues? I would now pass the stage to our 2 distinguished speakers.
Here's a question that may be in many people's minds. And maybe it should be phrased in terms of what happened in New York rather than what happened in Bangladesh. What did the moneylenders do when you came in and started lending money at a much smaller interest rate?
In Bangladesh? Yeah, in Bangladesh, one good thing about Bangladesh is it's a Muslim country. So money lending is not a public thing. People don't say that I'm a money lender. It's always under the table thing. People don't, they know who's the money lender, but apparently he looks like a very religious person and so on. But in religion, money lending is absolutely no in Muslim religion, interest and so on and so forth. So he has to hide that. So they could not attack us publicly. What they do, spread rumors, very ugly rumors about us. People will be trembling, shaking, listening to what a terrible threat we are in the society and so on. So they do a lot of those threats, and we counter, explaining who we are and so on and so forth. One very common one that, you remember when the missionaries came in this country, first time, what they do? They open hospitals, treat you, and you are so grateful to them for saving your child, saving your wife, saving your husband. And then when you are so grateful, they give you the book, change your religion. And then they saw that the hospital trick is not working very well. They started opening schools so that they give you education and you're grateful, your children are educated, and then giving you the book so that you change your religion. Now they come with a new trick. They give you money. And soon, if you're grateful they give you money, they will come with the book. These are the missionary people who are giving you money. So people get very scared. No, we don't want to lose our faith. We want to remain who we are. We don't want to change our religion and so on. So this is one example of, there's more terrible examples like that. Then we go and explain who we are, what they are doing, why they are doing, and so on. So, but one is the loan shark, which is spreading rumors. Other one is a frontal attack. That's the religious people, Muslim mullahs. They were absolutely against us. They will go on attacking us very publicly, that we are against religion, we are destroying religion. For one reason, we are lending money to women. This is absolutely unacceptable. It will destroy religion if women start coming out of the house because they have the money, they can earn money, they can do in the marketplace and so on. So this will destroy. So we have to respond to those kind of questions. Religion is very sensitive. Religion is very sensitive in the villages. So one good thing we could find, we respond to that. I said, yeah, if you're a good Muslim, you have to follow the footsteps of the Prophet. And you remember, Prophet married a businesswoman. If you want to be a good Muslim, you should marry a businesswoman. If you can't find a businesswoman, come to Grameen Bank. We have lots of them. So people knew the story of life of the Prophet, knew this very well. So they couldn't say that business for women is a wrong thing, because then you are opposing the whole concept in the Prophet and his life and so on. So they had to redesign the attack on other issues and so on. Anyway, so we kind of continued one after another. We didn't give up. But the fiercest attack came from the political side. The ultra-left thought we are the agents of American capitalism. We are sowing the seeds of capitalism in the poor people, who will be the people who will be rising in revolution. So we are destroying the revolutionary spirit of the people in the countryside. So I kept saying that since Bangladesh, in a way, a small country, so far as the people who are in a leading position know each other, they came to the same school, same college, and so on. So I said, look, if you want to stop us, this American capitalism expansion that we do, you better get your revolution quickly, because we are in only 20 villages right now. Still 20 minus 80,000 is available for you. Do the revolution, otherwise we'll go to the 40,000 villages very soon. Then you'll have a difficult time. So don't accuse us. You get your act ready and make it happen. Yeah, those are kind of stories that we have to counter with each other. Yeah.
Of course, what I was thinking, you used the term mafia when you spoke of New York, and the mafia are known to be quite violent. Indeed, I know that I was thinking of University of Chittagong, which
Yes.
is quite a violent place. So I thought that there might be problems which the loan sharks or the mafia would try to deal with by running you out of village.
No, Bangladeshi loan sharks are not kind of a aggressive bunch with the guns and things like that. It's not like that, not like mafia.
You said they were nice people.
Yeah, I said all people are nice people, but they're in the wrong business. Yeah. So when we started in New York City, and it's repeated in other cities also, people say, oh, we don't want any money from you. We know you're from mafia. Today you give us loan, tomorrow we'll twist our arm, break our legs, and no, that's not what we want. So we have to go on explaining who you are. We have to explain where we come from. We come from Bangladesh. We are from Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank does this good things, show pictures and things so that we can build up confidence that we are not mafia. So this is quite a struggle to remove people's image of mafia, looking at us in that image. So, but gradually, once it gets started, people have confidence.
Now, of course, as an economist, I think of things in terms of consumption and investment.
Yeah. We do the same thing.
And bankers, when bankers are lending, they would like to think that people are going to use the money for investment.
Sure.
Because they want to be sure that they will get
the money back.
I know that in India, there's the great wedding and funeral problem. People
may spend what appear to outsiders who don't have the same problems.
Yeah.
It's absurd amounts.
Yeah.
Are these problems for the
These are problems everywhere.
Grameen Bank? So I'm curious to know how you deal with.
The way we positioned ourselves right from the beginning, we make it very clear everywhere we work. This is a money to invest. This is not money to consume. We usual example in Bangladesh, it's a common example. We say, this is for planting the mango tree. Don't eat the tree. Wait for the mango. Eat as much mango as you want, but don't eat the tree. People get the message very clearly, that they understand that. So this is for investment. Every case is an investment. Then we say, what happens if you are sick? What happens if you have a wedding? You have to carry on with this. Why don't you save? Every Grameen Bank borrower has to create a savings account. It's a part of our work. They are so poor, when we talk about saving, they said, where is the money to save? We said, well, maybe you can sell one of your vegetable or something. 1 penny a week is good enough for us. Just put a penny into your savings account. Whatever little amount you can do. So we started it and people got around it, finding that 1 penny to put into this savings account. Our job was to create a habit for them and a belief that saving can happen. Poor people can save big. I'm coming from an economics where we're always told that rich people save, poor people dissave. So we wanted to say that it's not true. Poor people can also save. So they start with a penny. And it's such a kind of habit forming. Once you do that, it becomes very habit forming. Every week, as you pay back your loan, you also put the money into your savings account, and you continue that. At that time, we had no idea how significant this money would be. When the numbers grew, when the years grew, this became important. Last year, we lent out over $1.5 billion in the whole of Grameen Bank. It's an amazing year for us. The total savings of all the borrowers put together far exceeded $1.5 billion. So we just started as a penny, now become a big force. So now I tell the Grameen Bank officials, I say, look, you are always referring to them, our borrowers do this, or we do this for our borrowers. Maybe you should change the word now, because they are no longer borrowers, they are lenders. They give you more money than you give them. So you are the net borrower, they are the net lender. So relationship has changed. That's the power of savings. We say, whenever you want to use money, reach out to your savings account. It's your money. You can write your check anytime you want. You can withdraw your money anytime you want. So that's one safety device that we put. Along the way came another idea, pension fund. What happens to poor people when they grow old? This is a constant fear for the women that join the Grameen Bank. What happens? Now I can work, I can make money, I can take care of myself. But when I cannot move my hands, legs, anything, who will feed me? My children are poor. They will take care of their families. They will be busy with them. And what about me? Then we thought about something. We should come out with some idea how to do that. So that idea gradually took a shape of creating a pension fund for each borrower. It's a very simple idea. We let them create a pension fund savings account. The deal is every week you pay fixed amount of money, whatever. It's 50 taka, 100 taka, whatever, so $1 a week. So put them into the savings account. You're earning money now, so you can do that. You do it over 10 years, always the same amount every week. Whatever money you have saved over a period of 10 years, after you complete the 10 years, bank will match you with the equal amount, so it becomes double. For us, it was a very simple calculation. It's a 12% interest that we are paying for their account. For them, it's an amazing kind of thing. Oh my God, I'll have so much money by that time. Yes, you will have if you put 100 taka each week. This is the money you'll have, and this is what we give. This is the money you get. And then, what about my old age? You put it into monthly savings account, monthly income account, another account in the bank. So out of this, bank will give you every month X amount of taka, so that will take care of your immediate needs and so on and so forth. They are so taken by that every single, this is optional thing, this is their choice. Every single borrower has multiple of pension fund accounts. Multiple because they started with 100 taka, and 1 year later they said, oh, I should have put 200 taka. Then I would have more money. So she continues with 100 taka, she opens a new savings account for 200 taka. So both she services both, so that at the end she gets lots of money. This is how everybody wants to do that. So that she's protecting herself for the eventuality that I may be abandoned by everybody when I grow old. So these are the kind of things we built into the system.
I think we should probably, we should open this to the floor.
Okay.
I'm sure there are going to be plenty of questions
I'm
out
sure.
there. I can see that my boss already has a question.
Okay. Very good.
I'm totally inspired by your talk. Thank you very much. I just want to ask you two questions. Why are you borrowing, why are you lending money to women? Are they more creditworthy than men? And
You are jealous.
no, I mean,
No, I'm just kidding.
there's some difference,
Yeah, I'll come
right?
back.
And the second thing is, I think you're talking about a small business, family business, and so on. But in this world of globalized economy, do you think this kind of business will continue to thrive, or do you think it will just be, at least it will not be growing forever? It will just stop at a certain point and then might die someday.
First, the small businesses, the real power of the economy is the small business, not the big business. If you go to Germany, for example, whole German economy depends on the small business, not the company name that we hear. Then their part is very small compared to the small family-owned companies, individual-owned companies, and so on. So that's where the human creative power comes in. When you go to the corporate world, big world, that's a kind of another bureaucratic thing. It works, this is not a bad thing, but the real changes come from the individuals. They are the ones that started the startups and grow, and there's the one which retain the muscle of the economy in the bottom level. So, but we ignore it, we are always going, because all institutions geared for the bigger one, not the middle one, not the low one. You'll hear SME, everybody talks about SME. Nothing gets done. It's a buzzword, but nobody got, because banks find it very attractive to go there. The real worth is in the SME, because that's where the real people come, build their economy, build their future. And that's why I'm saying that these unemployed young people is the future of the economy as an entrepreneur. If you turn them on, they will reach the skies. But we don't do that. We are always buying the known company, global company, I buy a share, I make money, very safe. No institution wants to start with the unknown young people. That's why we said we need social business. We take a risk, we make it happen. That's what the new entrepreneurs of the young people, that's it. About the women issue, I try to touch that subject. The controversy that I built up with the banking system in Bangladesh. I said, you are wrong, not lending money to the poor. You are absolutely wrong, not lending money to the women. When I started my work, I said 50% of the borrowers in my work must be women, without any consideration whether they're good, they're bad. Simply they're human beings as much as anybody else. Why should we deny them? Banks said they don't come to us. That's why we cannot give. I said, forget about what they say. We go to them. We are not building a bank to people to come to us. We're building a bank to go to them. So we took our girl students, as I said, me and my students, that's what the whole story is all about. I took the girl students to go to the women, because I, as a man, cannot approach a woman in Bangladesh at that time. Today it's changed. They will never look at me, never see me, block the doors. She will hide under the door, behind the door. So I take the girl students and go inside. I will stand outside under the tree so that they will discuss, and if there is a problem that they cannot answer, they will come out, discuss with me, go back and answer that question and so on. This is how the whole negotiation took place. But the problem was, the girls go there, talk to the women. When they hear about money, they said, no money, we can't handle money. We never touched money in my life. I'm afraid of money. I don't want to create problem for my family by taking money from somebody else. Because they see money as a problem. They didn't see money as a solution. So the girls come back after months, after 6 months, 1 year, nobody is interested. They said, why are you insisting? They are saying that they don't have the capacity to handle money. So should we continue to bang on their door to make them believe that? So I gave them advice. I said, look, when a woman says, I don't know how to do with the money, I'm afraid of money, etc., always remember one thing. This is not her voice. It is the voice of the history which made her. History distorted her completely. The day she was born, I said, you are a girl, you remember yourself. The day you were born, everybody in the family was upset because it's a girl child. And ever since you stole in many different ways, that was not right. It should have been a boy. You took the place of a boy and created problem for us. Every girl is seen as a problem. Problem of raising her, problem of getting her into marriage, and marriage means at enormous expense because of dowry system in Bangladesh. So they got shaken by birth of a girl. So that girl now got married here. You are asking her to give her money. She thinks this is a challenge for her. This will destroy her life. This will create ripples in her life. She doesn't like any ripples. She doesn't like anybody to see that she exists. She's a non-existent person. I said, we have to go back again and again to build confidence in her. Peel off the fears which surrounded her. And it will take a lot of time, not easy. But don't give up hope. All you're waiting, someday, some women will say, I'm so desperate, maybe I should try. I can't take it anymore. Whatever happens, I'll take it. So she will take it, and she's successful. All her neighbors will become curious how she did it. And then say, maybe I should have done it too. If she gets away, if she can make it, I can do better than her. And the whole thing will start, snowball effect will happen. It took us 6 years to make it happen, 50-50. And we are celebrating that we made it. We reached the 50. Everybody said it's impossible. Women doesn't need money. I said, that's what you think. They have their own need. They said they don't know any business. I said the women said the same thing. We have to argue with them. Women say, I don't know anything. You know, I had to start by saying, do you know how to cook? They laugh. I said, why are you laughing? Because all women know how to cook. I said, you know something. You said you don't know anything. See? So I started that. Then I said, is there anybody among you who cooks very well? Everybody loves to eat her dish, particular dish, in the celebration and so on. Everybody loves her food. Oh, she makes this very well. She makes this very well. I said, look, why don't you make it and sell it? Then said, no. You don't sell food. You make food to feed people. They give me a lecture. So I go into another lecture. I said, does your husband, when he comes home, bring any sweets, any candies for your children? Yeah, he does. Where does he get it? Does he cook it? No, he doesn't cook it. Where does he get it? It's a marketplace. I said, did somebody make it and sell it? Yeah. Then why didn't you do it? Your husband buys it from somebody. So you sell it, somebody's husband will buy it from you. Very simple thing. So changing the mindset, that's the whole issue. Once they got into it, another issue came. That is the most fascinating issue I never could get out. Money that went to the family through women brought so much more benefit to the family than the same amount of money going to the family through men. You never miss that. Man is always a self-centered person. He wants to enjoy himself and with his buddies and so on. Women is always looking for the family. Her child, her family, her house, and everything, and her future, children's future. Much more than husband thinks about the children's future. So we said, that works very well for us. This is what we are looking for, changing the family. And she's the one who's tuned to that aspect. And you see it physically, it's not a theory. You see it very different thing. Because we have 50-50. 50 are men, 50 are women, 50% are women. So you can compare right away what happens to one family, what happens to the other family. So we gradually said, what is this 50-50 all about? Forget about 50-50. Let's pay attention to the women because they are the one really will make it happen. I think that's the best decision we ever take in Grameen Bank. That changed everything. That changed them, that changed Bangladesh completely. Today, women in Bangladesh is completely different than women they used to be 30 years back. And one reason is this. And poverty alleviation happened in Bangladesh because women at that level took charge of it. They said, I can do things myself. And that's how it happened. That's what the concept. When microcredit ideas spread outside of Bangladesh, they didn't go through our experience of 50-50. They went straight to women because they have seen it every day, everywhere. So microcredit has become synonymous with the tiny little loans for income generating activity for poor women. Its definition is fixed. And that's how it goes around. And when we went to the United States, we didn't bother about the men. It's 100% women. And US is a country where gender equality is a very important thing. You are violating that. You are defying one gender, concentrating another gender. This is quite a risky thing. So we worked out how to satisfy the regulators that we are not violating their gender equality principles and so on. So one idea somebody gave, and it worked very well. We declared ourselves women organization. So we work only for the women. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for your inspiring talk. As the average interest rate in your industry is about 30%, like the average loan taker might manage to get a more financial disciplined life, but like only a few of them can increase their living standards. Would you consider this as a threat or as an opportunity for your particular business as the value proposition of the industry decreases or becomes less attractive?
Yeah. Let me quickly give an overall statement. We created Grameen Bank as a social business, meaning that we had no interest in making money out of the poor people ourselves. That's why we designed Grameen Bank as to be owned by poor people. And the profit goes back to them. It doesn't spill over to any other people. When Grameen Bank microcredit idea has spread, many people thought this is a good income earning proposition for us. We can make money by lending poor people. So they started charging high interest rates. And we said, that's not the microcredit we are talking about. We are talking about the social microcredit, not commercial microcredit. Our goal is to help poor people get out of poverty rather than make a penny out of the poor people. I said, if you can have patience, after they get out of poverty, make money. I will not be bothered about it. But hold your breath, let them come out of it first. Then you do it. But many didn't. They wanted to start high interest rate, as high as 80%, 90%, 100% interest rate. I said, we are born to fight the loan sharks. That's why I was telling the story. Now you're using my idea of microcredit to turning yourself into a loan shark. I said, that's a very sad turn of history. So we kind of distinguish by saying there's a right microcredit versus wrong microcredit. So those who are making money out of the poor people for their own sake, profit making, that's the wrong microcredit. Those who are doing it for helping poor people get out of poverty, That's the right microcredit. So that's the distinction. We try to keep microcredit interest rate as low as possible and encouraging many central banks to fix a cap for all microcredit programs. Bangladesh, we have struggled, we have campaigned to create a microcredit regulatory authority so that they can take tab of all the microcredit programs. There are so many microcredit programs in Bangladesh, so that they can put a standard for that. People don't cheat each other, the borrowers and so on. And we requested them to put a cap on interest rate. And Bangladesh has put 27% as the cap for microcredit interest. And Grameen Bank always charged 20%, highest interest rate, but there are other interest lower than that, 5% for the education loan, 8% for housing loan, 0% for beggars. We lend money to beggars also, 0% interest, and so on. So the composite interest rate will be somewhere around 18%. Commercial bank interest rate for the rich people, which is about 15%, 16%. So that's about the distance that we have. We serve at the doorstep of the poor people, unlike the commercial banks, which you have to pay yourself. So we encourage, like India has a cap on microcredit program and many other countries have that. So this is how we try to address the interest rate issue, not to go up. And I have a formula that I preach, I explain to everybody. Genuine microcredit interest rate should be 10% plus the cost of fund. Cost of fund plus 10%, that will be the green range of microcredit interest rate. Cost of fund plus 10 to 15%, that's the yellow range. Meaning you are still good microcredit, but you are on the high side. Try to push it down to the green side. Cost of fund plus 15% and above, that's a red zone. You are no longer in the microcredit business, you are in the loan sharking business. So this is how we try to explain. Thank you.
One over here. No, turn around. I think there was one.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your fantastic speech and discussion. Actually, I always have a strong belief that social business or social entrepreneur will have increasing popularity in the world and also probably become the main trend of the charitable activities. And as far as I know, there are already some practice among the university students, for example, in CUHK, because I'm a business school student and also I'm from the CUHK social service team. Okay. So from time to time, I organize some charitable markets. And also I know that some of my friends recently opened the stores that sell the products from the local community stores that are not famous enough to catch people's attention. However, it's a shame that the results were not as good as expected. So I always wonder, in your opinion, what are the main elements that contribute to a successful social business? And also, do you have any advice on the small-scale social business that are held by students? Thank you.
Well, you raised a very important point about the young people and students. My position on the young people is something like this. I try to explain to them and explain to you that you are the most powerful generation in human history. Any generation before you were not less smart than you are, but they were less fortunate to have all those technology that you have. No generation ever had that enormous amount of technology in just one generation. Over a long period, they have done many things, but not in one generation, having at the young age so much power in your hand. And my question is, if you are such a powerful generation, you should be asking yourself, what use I make of my power? I have so much power in me. That's a very important thing to ask yourself. Because if you don't ask that question, you will never be aware of that power. And if you're not aware of that power, it will be wasted away in frivolous things. When you have a technology, first chance you do, because you don't know what to do with it, you do frivolous things, which is good. That's a fun thing, enjoyment. But that has a power for many social issues, many economic issues. How to use that power, transforming the world. Every young person has the power to change the whole world. Everyone, not just collectively. So much power is concentrated in that young person. So imagine that, what we do, what are the things I can do, and which are the options, and what I should look forward to creating a world that I like. Because your liking is important, not somebody else's liking. If you like something to happen, it will happen. If you don't think about that, you don't have likes and dislikes, nothing will happen which will make you happy because you don't have any likes and dislikes. You have a like and dislike, that's the issue. To give you simple examples how the young people are getting involved. One is, just to take the agriculture part of it. Agriculture is a major issue for social businesses. One young person came out in Albania. We have programs in Albania, they create a lot of social businesses. He came up with an idea. The women in the mountains, Albania is a beautiful country, mountainous, and so on, lots of resources. They produce beautiful honey, will make jams, jellies, and all kinds of things. They put honey in throwaway water bottle because they don't have any bottle, so they collect this honey and put it in a throwaway water bottle. They put the jam, jelly, and all the things they make in the cosmetics containers because they don't have any other container, and they bring to the market and sell it, get little price for that. So this young person looked at the thing and said, he came up with the business idea that I want to create a marketing company for all these products which is produced by women in the villages. I will produce a special container for jam, a special container for jelly, just a standard, and make a brand, take a level, and have a nice bottles for honey so that people know this is good honey, and supply this to women and ask them to fill them up, and I collect them and sell them at the grocery store, at hotels, and export, so that it's not a local market who pays only pennies. It's a very posh market, and bring the money back to them. This will be my social business. Great idea. That issue exists everywhere in the world. Between the real producer and the consumer, there's a big gap. Middleman takes up the money. They don't produce anything, just change hands, add a little thing, and finally make it. Coffee is another example. Another young person has created a coffee business. Coffee growers get very little. We pay, you pay. I don't pay, I don't drink coffee. Coffee, people pay $4, $5 US for a cup of coffee. But that coffee cup that you pay $4 or $5 for the cup, the coffee growers probably get a penny out of it. So somebody else made all the money, changed hands, and so on and so forth. So this young man, he now works with the coffee growers in India. He grows coffee, creates a social business, sells it in Germany. You go to Frankfurt airport, you'll be the largest coffee shop, beautiful coffee shop, say perfect day. He has shops in the town, in Wiesbaden, in Frankfurt, in Berlin. That's a social business. He doesn't want to make money. He sells this coffee and brings the money back to the producers. He said, my job is to give you the money which people are paying you. Minus the cost of operation that I have to do, but still a lot of money comes. He said, at the moment is my initial period. I pay 8 times the price for the coffee for my coffee grower than anybody else give the coffee grower. So this is a standard thing. Coffee growers don't get it. Consumers pay a lot. Cocoa growers get very little, but we love chocolate. We spend a lot of money for chocolate. They don't see that money. So anybody can create a social business in between, make the chocolate, and bring it back to people who grow. Real growers are always in the depriving side. We created lots of other such companies. One just quick to mention in Ghana. There's something called shea nut. It's grown in Ghana, in wild forest. Poor women go into the forest, collect all those nuts, and bring it out, sell it in the local market for very small money. And it changes hand in Ghana, one after another. Then it's exported to France, comes to L'Oreal, which produces shea butter, which is expensive skincare product. Everywhere in the world, they love it. Women pay a lot of money for that. But the women who brought those nuts, real nuts, which got into it, they didn't get anything. Somebody in between got everything. So we created a social business in between, negotiated with L'Oreal president. I sat down, we talked to him. I said, would you buy from us? We are a social business. We'll take the money back to the growers. He said, I would love to do that. You are the first priority. Because if I'm paying you the money, the same money they pay for everybody else, if it is going back to the women in the forest who collected it, I'll be the first person, happiest person in the whole system. You take as much. So we started in a small way. So started doing that. So this is another one. You go piece by piece. You see the opportunities that you can create. Waste, Hong Kong is a beautiful city, beautiful economy, but the waste you will be seeing in each factory, each business is retail, is enormous. They will not talk about it, but it's a company policy, we don't talk about your waste. But if you talk to them, befriend them, why don't we use this waste to recycle them? It's an enormous possibility. This has just gone away. To give one example, quickly, in France, the company that we work, McCain, I think his time is over. The McCain became very interested working with us. They got very excited. They also work in France. McCain is a Canadian company I mentioned to you earlier. So they buy all the potato grown in France. McCain is a French fry company. They tell me when I wanted to understand what McCain does, because I have no idea what McCain does. He said, do you like French fry? I said, yes, I like French fry. He said, next time you eat French fry anywhere in the world, remember you are eating McCain French fry. I said, my God, you are big. He said, yes, 80% of the French fry business we control. So that's McCain. In France, they were explaining they wanted to launch a social business with me standing next to them to explain to the press. The business is 26% of the potatoes grown in France are wasted because farmers cannot sell this 26%. 20% of this 26% is either de-shaped, wrong shape, it doesn't come into French fry, it doesn't come into potato chips, so nobody buys it. So farmers just throw it away. And 6% of the potatoes cannot be picked up from under the ground, because the machine do not collect it. So he said, I was so inspired by your social business idea. We work together in Colombia. We have a joint venture in Colombia. So now we are concentrating in France, taking your idea. We create a new social business, take the unemployed young people of France to create a new company, to take these throwaway potatoes, turn them into potato soup. And we have the best chef in France. He committed himself to design a special recipe for this social business potato soup so that he will give his image on the packet and say, this is the best recipe that you can ever have. So that people pay attention to it. Because it's a social business, I want to be part of that social business. So now, unused young people, unused potato, you got a business going. And that 6% under the ground, they said we are discussing with the engineering universities how to make simple implements to pick it up, not big machines. Big machines fail, they don't do that. So the young people use these implements and get this 6% or whatever they could get out of it. So that becomes a social business. So this is what people can do. There's so much to be done. Simply we are not paying attention. We're so busy putting our attention to our stock market report. That's all we do. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm afraid that's it as far as, just for the moment. But
Thank you.
Sure there will be ways of hearing you, probably using technology.
Thank you so much. Yes, technology is a very powerful thing.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Yunus, Professor Mirrlees, for the sharing. May I now invite Ms. Pearl Yan, a youthful student from CW College who participated a study trip to Yunus Center in Bangladesh 2 years ago.
Okay.
Pearl, please.
Yeah, we got a lot of students from Hong Kong coming. Yeah, that's wonderful. Very good.
Good evening, Professor Muhammad Yunus.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Good evening, Professor James Mirrlees. Good evening, Professor Joseph Sung, fellow students and honorable guests. It's a privilege and a great joy for me to extend a vote of thanks to Professor Muhammad Yunus on this occasion. I've had the opportunity, the privilege, to have met Professor Muhammad Yunus in 2013 in my study trip, social business study trip in Bangladesh.
Right.
Yeah, so I remember meeting Professor Muhammad Yunus a day before the Social Business Day 2013 at Yunus Center. And the moment that strikes me the most was when we asked Professor Yunus a question, which is, what do you think about the gap between the rich and the poor? And Professor Yunus' answer was very simple. He simply said, I don't look at the gap at all. There's no reason why people should be poor. Anyone who's poor has the opportunity to be rich as anybody else. And that really strikes me because whenever people try to think about, when people try to find a solution for poverty, they often look at the gap between the rich and the poor and they try to shorten it. But Professor Muhammad Yunus believes in creating a world without poverty. And that is why the social business model of his is really successful. Because by giving poor people the opportunity, particularly poor entrepreneurs, the opportunity to have their own capital to build businesses, they take ownership in their own livelihoods and also lift themselves out of poverty. Professor Yunus also mentioned in his speech that Grameen Bank is owned by poor women. They make their own decisions as shareholders. That reminds me actually of one time when we visited one of the villages in Dhaka, and we visited a village woman's household, and she loves making blankets and also pillowcases. That is what she's really good at, and they're beautiful. She told us how commercial banks rejected her to give her loans simply because she's undereducated, because men's supposed to work and women's supposed to stay at home. But because of the loan she got from Grameen Bank, she's now able to hire other ladies from the same village to be her workers, and they work together to make products, and then they sell all these beautiful blankets and also pillowcases all over Bangladesh, and also even export them to India. So I think this is a really inspiring story to me, because until this day I still remember the smile on her face and how she was showcasing her pillowcases and her blankets to us with pride. So that is something that would continue to inspire me to think about what kind of efforts could be made to tackle poverty and to alleviate poverty, most importantly. And once again, tonight I would like to, on behalf of Chinese University of Hong Kong, I would like to express our deep gratitude to Professor Muhammad Yunus for your sharing on such a topic of such contemporary relevance, as well as being an inspiration for our generations as individuals to be an agent of change and to empower the poor for the goal of creating a sustainable world. Allow me to express our thanks to Professor Yunus in Bengali, Tonobad.
Dhanyavad.
And once again, please join me in showing our appreciation for Professor Yunus for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So kind. So good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We now invite our Vice Chancellor, Professor Joseph Sung, on stage to take a photo with our
that'd be
guests.
great. That'd be wonderful. You want to take this? Or maybe we should keep it for the photo. We should keep it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. It's appreciated. Thanks a lot. Come closer. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. No, wow, that's wonderful. Very, very responsive young people. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again for Professor Yunus and Professor Mirrlees. The talk is officially ended. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us today. Please note that we are currently hosting a special exhibition on global and local poverty in the second floor of YIA exhibition area. It is open till 6th of November. We hope to see you around for more sharing. The 2015 University Lecture on Civility is officially ended. Thank you and wish you all a good evening.